The Navajo Witch Hunt, Chasing Shadows in the Desert, 1878. Imagine a body torn apart under a blood-red moon. Ribcage cracked wide, heart ripped out, eyes gouged from their sockets. 17 jagged holes, punched through a man's back, like the work of claws no animal could wield. This wasn't a lone murder. It was one of 42, a brutal tally from the Navajo Witch Purge of 1878. What were they hunting? A monster of flesh and bone, or something darker? Hit subscribe on Native Legends and History Stories to unravel the truth behind America's deadliest witch trials. The sun blazed down on Fort Wingate, August 1878, turning the air into a furnace. Lieutenant John Mitchell pressed his brass binoculars to his face, the metal scorching his skin, as he tracked a dust cloud clawing its way across the northern horizon. A man, they said, who cursed with garbage and grave dirt, who sent his kin to worm into rich clans marrying, working, waiting to strike. Beside him, Lieutenant Sean McGonigal shifted uneasily in the thin shade of their cracked wooden quarters, his breath shallow. "That's no hunting party," Mitchell muttered, voice tight. The plume swelled, a storm of earth kicked up by too many hooves, too many riders. Not Apache, those raiders skulked in silence, and the 9th Cavalry had them pinned far east. No, this was Navajo. A decade had passed since their surrender, since the long walk broke their backs and scattered their people onto this sprawling reservation. 10 years of tense, quiet, petty squabbles over cattle, a stolen horse here, a fistfight there. Nothing like this. The boards groaned as Colonel Edward Swain stepped up behind them, his shadow falling heavy. The lieutenant snapped to attention, but he waved them off with a flick of his weathered hand. His gray eyes locked on the dust, unreadable as stone. "My office." 15 minutes, he said, turning away without another word. Inside, maps plastered the walls faded, curling at the edges under the relentless sun streaming through a grimy window. Swain sealed a letter with a wax stamp as they entered, his pen scratching like a beetle across parchment. "You're going out there," he began, not looking up. "First to Fort Defiance with a telegraph, then to Juan Lorenzo's trading post in Gatto. Find out what's stirring them up. Talk them down if you can." His tone was clipped, official, until he added one rule that hit like a hammer. Whatever's happening between the Navajo themselves, you don't touch it. Observe. Report. That's all. Then he slid his spectacles off, and the air shifted. This wasn't the colonel anymore, just Swain, a man who'd seen too much. "What do you know about witches?" he asked, voice low. "Not fairy tales. Navajo witches." He leaned back, recounting what he'd learned from years on the frontier, from whispers and books, by men like Clyde Clucon. Witchery, sorcery, wizardry, frenzy, witchcraft. To the Navajo, these weren't ghost stories. They were threads, woven into the fabric of their world. Sickness, misfortune, death, all signs of chaos a healer could mend with songs and sage, unless a witch caused it. Swain's face darkened. 4 settlers dead last month, torn apart worse than any bear could do. The agent called it a mountain lion. Then 2 days later, a Navajo family, same way. He paused, letting the weight settle. They're hunting something out there, something they believe in deeper than we'll ever grasp. The room went still, save for the drone of flies battering the glass. Swain marked their map, Fort Defiance, then Gatto, and sent them off with a warning that clung like damp heat. "If they're chasing witches, they've got reasons we can't judge. Stay out of it." The door thudded shut behind them, heavy as a coffin lid. 3 days later, their horses kicked up red dust outside Lorenzo's trading post, a squat adobe bunker baked hard by the desert sun. Juan Lorenzo met them at the door, his face a mask of sun-etched lines, neither friend nor foe. He ushered them past shelves of flour sacks and tin cans into a dim back room. There, an old Navajo man sat coiled in the corner, Hostine Begay, his eyes sharp as flint. fingers twisting a turquoise ring. Lorenzo nodded to him. He'll tell you what's happening. Biget's voice rasped like wind over stone. Ye Nallushi, he said, skinwalkers. Not the Hawaii holy healers who sang balance back into broken lives, but something cursed. Witches who shed their humanity for power, slipping into wolf skins, owl wings, coyote claws. They weren't born monsters. They chose it, killed for it. You take a brother's life, Biget said, and the dark opens to you. Incest, murder, grave robbing, these were their rights, their keys to a world no sane soul would touch. They don't heal, he spat, glancing at the window as if something might peer back. They break. Men mostly, but women too, old hags, barren, shunned. Power ran in families, a poison passed down like an heirloom. Some learned it young, others stumbled into it through envy or greed. They'd curse a rich man's herd, sicken his kids, then slink in with a cure for a fat price. Or they'd grind corpse dust, children's bones. Twins, if they could get them into a powder fine as pollen. Drop it through a Hogan smoke hole, blow it in your face, slip it into your tobacco. One breath, and your tongue blackened, your jaw locked, your life leaked away. At night, they gathered caves deep in the canyons, walls lined with skulls, air thick with rot. Naked, but for masks, they'd chant backward, smear ash into twisted sand paintings, and fire arrows of human bone at their victims' effigies. Then they'd shift coyote, bear, owl eyes glowing red. Too human, too wrong. Faster than horses, they'd leap ravines, leave tracks no tracker could name. And if you locked eyes with one, you'd speak their words, swing their knife, lost to their will. Mitchell cut in, voice steady but thin. Why now? Why the hunt? Biget's gaze hardened. Too many dead. Too many sick with no cure. We can't wait anymore. Darkness draped the desert as the lieutenant stepped outside, the cool air a fleeting mercy. Biget's words gnawed at them, tales of shapeshifters and corpse poison clashing with their soldiers' logic. Were these killers real, cloaked in superstition, or something beyond the world they knew? Either way, the Navajo had snapped. 42 would die before the bloodlust burned out. It started with history's wounds. The Long Walk, 1864, 8,000 Navajo, herded 300 miles to Bosque Redondo, a wasteland of starvation and graves. Ute raiders and slavers picked at the survivors, and in that despair, some turned to the witchery way. Power to strike back, to survive. When they limped home in 68, the Skinwalker legend grew, fed by drought, hunger, and shadows that wouldn't fade. By 1878, the breaking point hit. Crops shriveled, sheep dropped, sickness crept through hogans. Then the murders, settlers first, ripped open like offerings, then Navajo families. Same brutal marks. Huston Bawasi became the name whispered in fear. A man, they said, who cursed with garbage and grave dirt, who sent his kin to worm into rich clans marrying, working, waiting to strike. The purge exploded. Traitor Charles Hubble saw it kick off, thought it was a raid till he glimpsed the truth. They stoned a man till he fell, he wrote, shouting witch like it was a war cry. Another, J.N., was dragged from Lake Gada, tortured till he spat names and secrets, cursed treaty pages stuffed in corpses. Rituals to choke the living. You'll never get us all, he laughed, blood bubbling, before they broke him. Bawasi was the prize. 50 warriors hunted him to a sacred lake, yanked him from the water, and pelted him with rocks till the shore ran red. His clan, dead or banished, vanished like smoke. Torture ruled the hunt. Coals on feet, clubs on skulls, stones till confession or silence. Belief promised healing for victims. If witches spoke pain, pried out truth. Or so they thought. Mitchell's report tallied 10 executions, but Navajo Whispers said 40, maybe more as vengeance spiraled. They're cutting out evil like rot, he scribbled in his journal, unsent. The army watched, Hands-off Swain's orders held firm. This was their fight, their law. When the dust settled, a new shadow rose, sucking bone. Healers slashed skin, sucked out pebbles and blood, spitting curses into bark bowls. Some swore it worked, others saw fraud or worse. Skinwalkers hiding as saviors. The line between good and evil blurred, a wound that wouldn't heal. Mitchell and McGonigal rode back, reports crisp, doubts festering. Were those 42 monsters or martyrs? Belief had killed them, belief in something too deep, too real for outsiders to touch. The Navajo locked it away again, a silence born of dread. Even now, they don't speak the name lightly, say it, and it might hear. In '87, it broke open once a murder trial in Flagstaff. Sarah Saganitso, throat crushed, grass from a graveyard by her truck. The defense cried Skinwalker. The jury wavered. Conviction flipped to acquittal, a crack in the wall of reason. The desert keeps its secrets. A coyote's wail could be hunger or a call to the dark. The Navajo watch, always, because some shadows never die. Want more from the edge of legend and history? Subscribe to Obscura Historia. We tread where the night runs deep.